I look at three major forces that are happening now, haven't happened in our lifetimes, but have happened many times in history. And those three major forces are the creation of a lot of debt and the printing of a lot of money to buy that debt, particularly because the government is running large deficits. And so they don't have enough money, so that government has to print that money. So that creation of all of that debt and its financial implications and its economic implications is one force.
As the founder of the biggest hedge fund in the world, Ridgewater Associates, which he started in 1975 from his flat, Ray Dalio is a well-known American investor and hedge fund manager. Dalio has amassed a substantial financial empire and a greater reputation as a result of his decades-long study of international markets and economies. Principles for Dealing with a Changing World Order: Why Nations Fail and Succeed by Dalio was published in 2021 and became an international bestseller and New York Times bestseller. Through 5 centuries of the rise and fall of the greatest empires in history, the Tax Dialogue takes readers deep into the most turbulent economic and political eras. Readers will learn about the turmoil of the past as a result of Dalio's journey through 500 years of history, but they will also learn how to recognize the timeless and universal causes that lead to power transitions and the ways in which they manifest themselves now. Dalio aids in our understanding of the crucial elements that determine a nation's success, and more crucially, failure, by presenting the achievements and failures of significant economies throughout history. Dalio asserts that these elements frequently manifest themselves in phases and have remained unaffected by the expansion and decline of several empires and dynasties. In a recent interview, Dalio talks about this transition's different phases and ties each one to the current status of the American economy.
The second force is the internal conflict, the amount of conflict that's internally, largely due to the largest wealth gaps that we've had since the 30s. And that produces populism of the left and the right, particularly when there are financial difficulties. The third force is the rising power, the challenging the existing power, largely in the form of China and to some extent Russia. So let's call it the great power conflict, because in 1945, there's this cycle. You have a war, then after a war, you have winners, and the winners determine the rules of the game. And then there's this evolution of others becoming more competitive, and then you have a conflict again for who's in control. So we have that dynamic taking place. I went back and studied history, the last 500 years, on these cycles. There are big cycles that last about 75 years, give or take about 50 years, and of rises and declines. And I put that out because I think it's so important people understand that. I put it out in a book called The Changing World Order and in a free video called The Changing World Order. So when we look at each one of those, they're important. I also learned in studying history that there were 2 other influences that were very big, and you could see them. The first was acts of nature, such as droughts, floods, and pandemics, the changes over time in the evolution over time of people's learning and the technologies they make. So I'd say there are the really 5 big influences that drive everything. So in the book, I write out, there's like a disease, like a cancer, you see stage 1, 2, 3, 4. If you have these things, you could look at it and you could diagnose, and you see it moving from stage 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 and to 6. You could see that taking place. And each time you come closer to a bad set of circumstances, bad financial circumstances, and bad fighting over things. The dominoes are beginning to fall. I mean, okay, you know what the next dominoes are, and you can imagine the other dominoes. So, for example, they're not going to buy the debt. A lot of them are not. Those who bought the debt and have too much debt and have debt losses on government debt are not going to buy buy more of that debt, for example, and therefore, when the government sells more of the debt, there's not going to be an adequate number of buyers for that debt. You know that those who are hurting because they have those losses won't make loans, and a lot of those loans went to real estate, particularly commercial real estate. And you know that for various reasons in commercial real estate, that we don't use it the same way and so on. So you're going to have problems in commercial real estate. You know that this kind of money was also financing venture capital and private equity entities that also have cash flow problems, challenges. And so you know that that funding is not going to be there in the same way. You know, as a result of these things, that a number of entities will cut costs and in their various ways. And so depending on that, the job market is changing. And you see it, for example, in tech jobs and other, if you're in some of those areas that are getting squeezed, and you see the same thing by and large, happening internationally. So you can see also that if you said, what is the value of those assets that are being held, that value has gone down a lot. And because it was bought on leverage, as you described, because it is bought on leverage, there are bad losses in different places. And that's happening at the same time as we have an internal conflict taking place, such as the presidential election. So we're going to come into the presidential, and it's not just presidential election. Of course, it's a number of senators, congressmen, and so on, and who are at each other's throats about this, and who are going to fight with each other. Okay, and fight to win, not probably respect the rules as much, but fight to win for their side. And that's happening at the same time as we have the situation with China, most importantly, China and Russia, in terms of the issues, in terms of their things to fight over. For example, even there's going to be an election in Taiwan that'll also have a big bearing on this whole thing. So we know, I think, pretty much that we're going to have financial problems and economic problems at the same time as we have this internal fighting and an external risky situation.
In 2020, when China was assuming the role of a world superpower, Dalio cautioned Americans to exercise caution. High-ranking Chinese officials were said to have been in awe of calculators during his visit to the East Asian nation in 1984, which he discussed in detail. Dalio went on to claim that China was on par with the United States in terms of technological development and would overtake it by 2025. China currently outperforms the US in a number of indicators, and it appears that China is close to challenging the US's claim to the status of reserve currency, which is the US's main selling point abroad. According to All Things Considered, a new global superpower may be emerging while an old one is actually dying. What are your opinions on Ray Dalio's interview and his dire prognosis for the US economy? In the section below, please share your thoughts and views. Additionally, if you enjoyed this video, please turn on post notifications and subscribe to the channel to receive updates on new content. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.